Thank you for all coming for our Sunday Love Feast and for being on time. Also, happy Karthik Mas. We're going to be diving in today because this is the first Sunday festival of Karthik. Obviously, Karthik started last Tuesday, but today's the first day where we all at least will be together as a congregation for Karthik. So we're going to dive a little bit into what that means for us as Vaishnavas. Of course, that can mean many different things for many different people, but specifically for us as Vaishnavas, how does that apply to us? What is our mission? How do we take on our mistakes? And then what should our mentality be during this holy month? But of course, we'll start with our invocation prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manavishram Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Ramayam Dadati Swapatantrikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Vapakamadam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Tamidam Sajivam Sagaitam Sadvadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitanamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Vasudevaccha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so let us talk Karthik. So this is a very auspicious month. This is one of the most looked forward to times of year for many devotees. Of course, festival season usually in the Vaishnava calendar coincides around the fall months, and the pinnacle of that is around Karthik, since we have so many different leelas and pastimes revolving around Krishna happening at this time. So it's a very dear time for Vaishnavas. Specifically for context, obviously this is not the Gregorian calendar, so Karthik doesn't always follow September every year, October every year, or November every year. It follows the lunar calendar. So it begins on the first full moon night, which was just previously this Tuesday, and this will continue onwards until the next full moon. And then, of course, who is the main focus of Karthik?
Lord Shiva.
Not quite.
Any hint?
Oh, Larry?
Radha Damodar.
Sure. So Damodar is the main focus. So the Damodar Leela is what we're mostly focusing on this month. So specifically around this pastime, so Damodar, we translate it, Dhamma means rope, and then Udara means belly. So Damodar means the rope around the belly, or one who's bound around the belly by ropes. So we are focusing on this Damodar Leela. So for those of you who are not familiar with the story, I'll give an abbreviated version so we can really dive into the meaning of what this month means for us as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But this is Krishna as not on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the immortal king. This is not Krishna in the wrestling arena in the prime of his youth at 16 years old. This is toddler Krishna. This is if you're a mother or a parent, this is when your child drives you crazy and makes you want to pull your hairs out of your head. This is the Krishna that we are worshiping during Karthik Mas. So specifically, this pastime revolves around first Mother Yashoda. She is in her home churning butter, freshly made butter, and while she is churning, she's singing. And then, of course, Krishna, being a young, small boy, he comes to his mother, pulling at her sari, asking for milk. And so, of course, out of motherly affection, Mother Yashoda brings Krishna on her lap and starts to breastfeed him. And he's happily suckling away. But then, of course, because she was busy in the middle of a chore, in the distance she already hears the milk that she was boiling starting to curdle, churn. She can start to hear the bubbling. So she puts Krishna down, runs to go and save the milk, because obviously she does not want to spoil that milk. While that is happening, remember, Krishna is a small boy. What do small children do, like the toddler age, when they don't get something they want? What do? They throw a temper tantrum. So what Krishna does is he starts crying, gets angry, he's stomping his little feet, his ankle bells are tinkling everywhere. But he's smart. He's a very smart, intelligent, of course he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows everything. So of course he knows where all of the butter is stored in the house. So what he does is he goes into the storage room. He gets a pedestal, one of the older pots, and he stands up on top of it, and he reaches for one of their freshly hung pots with some amazing, delicious butter, smashes it down to the ground, and then immediately starts to eat to fulfill his needs, because he wants his dairy. He was getting his mother's breast milk. He was denied that. So the next best thing is to get some freshly churned butter and just start eating that. But of course, Mother Yasoda hears the cracking of a clay pot. Have any of you ever smashed or heard like a smash of like clay before?
No.
It's a lot more deeper of a sound. So if you think like a plate, like a nice fine china plate, breaks that porcelain, it's a high pitch. Clay is a little thicker, so it's a lower sound, and lower sound actually carries further than higher pitch sounds. So if a big clay pot falls, not only are you going to hear it in the next room, you're going to hear it throughout the entire house, especially if it's a gigantic pot. So, of course, Mother Yashoda instantly hears this big crash. And so naturally she goes running to where the sound came from. And of course, she sees her small boy, pieces of clay shattered everywhere, with butter all over the face, and then, of course, little Krishna, with butter all over his face, dripping down all the way to his feet. So instantly she realized what happened, and of course, she's a dutiful parent. She goes to chastise Krishna. But Krishna is no longer a baby. He is mobile, and he is very mobile. So he starts to instantly run away, and the tinkling of his ankle bells can be heard all around the village of Vrindavan as he is trying to escape his mother. And his mother, continuously running after him, is actually in the Shastras described that everything about her was musical. Her ankle bells, her jewelry, flowers coming out, even the perspiration coming off, essentially beautified Mother Yasoda as she was chasing after Krishna with her whipping stick in her hand, trying to catch him. And of course, Krishna is seeing all of this while he's looking around, acting afraid of his mother, seeing the stick in her hand. And he's crying, he's yelling, he's trying to get away, but ultimately he lets himself be captured by his mother. Now that his mother has Krishna, perfect. Now I'm going to teach you a lesson for stealing all that butter. That butter was meant for your father. Your father is Nanda Maharaj. He is the king of this entire village. What is he going to do if he doesn't have ghee and butter in his food? It's going to be terrible. It's going to taste disgusting. You need to have that ghee. That's why you always cook food in ghee. It has an extra special flavor. But she decides, okay, you use this mortar to steal the butter. The mortar is your accomplice. You and the mortar are equally guilty for stealing this butter. So she grabbed some rope and she tied one end of the rope to the grinding mortar, tied it nice and tight, a nice good sturdy knot. It's like, okay, this rope is not going anywhere. She already had Krishna by the hand. It's like, he's not going anywhere. So she grabbed him close and began to wrap around the belly once, twice, and then when she went to go and finish the knot against the grinding mortar, she came 2 fingers too short. Just a little bit, around 2 inches. It's like, that's odd. I thought I had enough rope. It's okay. I'll reach over, I'll grab some more rope. Tied an end to that rope, wrapped around again, went to go tie it to the mortar to close the knot. 2 inches too short. It's like, okay, maybe I wasn't paying attention how long that rope was. Grabs another rope from the room. Ties that one, secures it to the original rope, wraps it around Krishna, tries to go for the grinding mortar. 2 inches too short again. People in the village are starting to be worried and watch. It's like, what's she going to do? Beta's naughty. He needs to be punished. So they bring all the ropes. Every villager begins to bring all their ropes to add to this. And they keep wrap around the mortar, wrap around Krishna, 2 inches too short. But ultimately, Mother Yashoda is victorious because simply out of her pure love, she is able to get those last 2 inches and secure them out. And then Krishna and his accomplice, the grinding mortar, are now tied together. They're stuck. They can't do anywhere. Mother Yashoda's like, finally, you're out of my hair. I'm going to go back to that boiling milk. I'm going to secure it, and then I'm going to finish churning my butter. And then when I'm done with that, then I will take you out of timeout. So she goes back and she begins to finish the work that she started, starting to churn the butter and boil that milk. Now Krishna is in the garden. He's stuck with this grinding mortar. And he looks at it and he's like, what am I going to do? So he starts crawling around. Now remember, toddlers can be 2-wheel drive or they can be 4-wheel drive. So toddler Krishna transitions into 4-wheel drive, full off-road capability as he goes through the yard. And he starts crawling around. He sees these 2 large trees and they're in a V shape, a perfect wedge. So he starts to crawl through. He crawls through the 2 trees, plops down on the other side, engages 4-wheel drive again, starts crawling. The rope starts to pull, and the grinding mortar drags, and then gets caught between the 2 trees. The grinding mortar can't go through that gap that Krishna was able to go through. So now it's a tug of war between Krishna and the grinding mortar. He's pulling, and eventually his strength is so inconceivable that these 2 gigantic Arjuna trees topple over. And then instantly these 2 personalities emerge, Krishna is freed, and these 2 personalities instantly offer their obeisances. So these 2 personalities were the 2 sons of Kuvera who were cursed by Narada Muni to become 2 trees. Ultimately, that's another entire different story that I'm sure other classes throughout the month. Excuse now for you to come back and hear more about Damodar Lila. But these 2 trees were toppled. These 2 demigods instantly offered their obeisances to the Lord because he redeemed them. He liberated them from this position as a tree. And they instantly bowed at his feet, glorified him, and they became his pure devotees. So if you want to look into that, chapter 10 dives in a little more into this, chapter 10 of the 10th canto dives into more of this lila, where Narada Muni cursed these 2 demigods, the sons of Kuvera, to become these 2 trees. But ultimately we can understand that a curse from a devotee is actually a blessing, because the curse of Narada Muni was for these 2 souls to become delivered by Sri Damodar. So ultimately we want to get punished by devotees because that will always give you an immense spiritual benefit. But to really solidify this mentality, I actually would like to read one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam and then its purport. So do we have the handheld mics? We will in a second. We'll power them up. And then Jai. Okay. Go. Dot. Bunch. Lovely. Okay. Let's have. Who has not read in a block? Krish. You go ahead and read this verse for me, please.
Shri Shuka Uvacha Ekada Kriha Dashishu Yashoda Nanda Kehini Karmantara Niyuk Tashu Nirmamanta Swayam Dadi Yani Yaniha Kitani Tad Bala Charitani Cha Dadi Nirmantane Kale Smaranti Tani Agayata.
Yes.
Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued. One day when Mother Yashoda saw that all the maidservants were engaged in other household affairs, she personally began to churn the yogurt. While churning, she remembered the childish activities of Krishna, and in her own way she composed songs and enjoyed singing to herself about all those activities.
Thank you. So, anyone here can compose their own songs about Krishna? Does anyone try it? There you go. Here's something that you might want to try then. Writing a poem about Krishna. So, we will dive into this a little bit more after we read the purport, but hold on to this this translation. It's specifically thinking about Mother Yashoda's mentality when she's performing her service. Can I have Samanvi? I'm going to read the first part of the purport.
Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, quoting from the Vaishnava Doshani of Srila Sanatana Goswami, says that the incident of Krishna's breaking the pot of yogurt and being bound by Mother Yashoda took place on the Deepavali day, or Deepamalika. Even today in India, this festival is generally celebrated very gorgeously in the month of Karthik by fireworks and lights, especially in Bombay. It is to be understood that among all the cows of Nanda Maharaj, several of Mother Yashoda's cows ate only grasses so flavorful that the grasses would automatically flavor the milk. Mother Yashoda wanted to collect the milk from these cows, make it into yogurt, and churn it into butter personally, since she thought that this child, Krishna, was going to the houses of neighborhood gopas and gopis to steal butter because he did not like the milk and yogurt ordinarily prepared.
Anything you can take away from that?
Krishna was stealing Mother Yashoda, not the gopi and gopa's butter, and so she thought that he didn't like her milk, so she wanted to make it like even better for him.
Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing too, of course, Nanda Maharaj is the head of all the cow herds, so he has access to every single pasture around Vrindavan. So his cows get to go to the best grazing grass. It's not Florida grass, so I don't know. Milk from Florida, I've only tried it a little bit. They're cows raised by devotees. There's the love there, but there's something you can notice based on how cattle and milk cows are raised. If there's certain grass that has a more softer texture, you'll notice their milk will have a little bit more sweeter of a texture. So you can actually influence like what kind of milk do I want? Do I want a sweeter milk? Okay, which I'm going to plan to use for a milk sweet. I'm going to graze my cattle on those type of grass. Or if I want something that's going to be used for something more savory, I'm going to make some more ghee for something that's not going to be a sweet preparation, maybe put them on a more heartier grass. Or something that I plan to last longer. So you can influence how your prasadam is going to take place by how you feed your cows. Same way, you eat too much, you get a little more fatty. Same thing, you can manage a cow's diet to influence what the milk is going to be like, to influence how all your cooking is going to be. So Mother Yashoda is already thinking 3 steps ahead. How am I going to make all this butter so I can get Krishna? Thank you. Dana, would you like to
You're getting closer.
Yeah.
While churning the butter, Mother Yashoda was singing about the childhood activities of Krishna. It was formerly a custom that if one wanted to remember something constantly, he would transform it into poetry or have this done by a professional poet. It appears that Mother Yashoda did not want to forget Krishna's activities at any time. Therefore, she poeticized all of Krishna's childhood activities, such as killing of Putana, Adusara, Sakatasara, and Trinavarta. And while churning the butter, she sang about these activities in poetical form. This should be the practice of persons eager to remain Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. This incident shows how Krishna conscious Mother Yashoda was. To stay in Krishna consciousness, we should follow such persons.
And then take away from
Basically, you could just think about and do about Krishna 24 hours nonstop.
Yeah, and if you think about even like when it's mentioned how transforming something into poetry or song, it's easier to remember. That you can even see in how children are growing up. How do children learn their grammars? Is ABC just recited?
It's a song.
It's a song.
It's not.
It's a song. Everything you can memorize easier if it has some kind of if it can become catchy. That can apply to anything material. That can also doubly apply to anything spiritual. If you give it some way to easily memorize, you tie it to a catchy tune. If you give it a fun allegory, that's something that you can memorize easier. So if there's anything that you want to really work on memorizing or just make into it, ingrained in your mind, notice how the mind will have a habit of actually catching lots of things that have a pattern to it. Just think advertising. People who ever put a commercial out, they will have some kind of annoying jingle, and that annoying jingle is going to be stuck in your head forever. So to get rid of that annoying jingle, think of something Krishna conscious and give it a spiritual jingle. So good. Now, this is the entire mentality of what we're now going to dive into in the month of Kartik. How can we properly, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, live through this holy month of Kartik? So, this is, of course, the month of Damodar. So we want to look at what are we, as Vaishnavas, expected to do during Kartik? How do we deal with our mistakes that we are going to potentially or inevitably commit during Kartik? And then what is our mentality that we should maintain throughout this month? So first, let's talk about the mission. What is expected of us as Vaishnavas during this month? So first, I'd like to quote a little bit from Hari Bhakti Vilas, which was composed by, does anybody know who? It was instructed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to compose this. Yes, Sri Sanatana Goswami, who is one of the 6 Goswamis. Very good. So in the Padma Purana, it is said, of the 12 months, Kartik is the most dear to Lord Krishna. To anyone who even slightly worships Lord Vishnu during its time, the month of Kartik gives residence in Lord Vishnu's transcendental abode. And of course, this is from the 16th Vilas composed by Sri Sanatana Goswami. Now, let's break it down. How are we going to worship Lord Vishnu and specifically Lord Damodar during this month? So firstly, you have to sing and hear about the glories of Damodar Leela as much as possible, and there are many different ways that you can do that. One is the daily recitation of the Damodar-astakam, which we will be doing later after Arati. So that is something that you will routinely do. And it also, not only just reciting the Sanskrit. Of course, you want to always make sure you recite the Sanskrit, but that's only part of it. The other half is understanding the translation and understanding the meaning. Vaishnava songs are not just composed to be catchy. They're composed to have some type of meaning or some type of deeper meditation. And that's all kirtan that we perform. It is not just something that is a musical performance. It is supposed to connect you to something much deeper. What is your bhakti? What is your devotion supposed to mean during that recitation? And then, of course, also hearing these pastimes. So as I mentioned, we just read from that verse earlier. The 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapters 9 and 10 and into 11 will focus on this Damodar Leela. And so this is a really important section. Of course, the first half of that Leela, this is where Srila Prabhupada is still writing purports, so you can hear his words. But then afterwards, once you start to go into the later chapters, that's actually the transition point from when you go to Srila Prabhupada's purports to his disciples' purports. At that point, he's already left this world. But still, the message is the same. So that's something that we can definitely do, or reading in Krishna book of the chapters that correspond to Damodar Leela. What else we can do, of course, is something that is also instructed by Sri Sanatana Goswami during Kartik. So this is Hari Bhakti Vilas in 1644. So Lord Krishna is pleased by the offering of a single lamp during the month of Kartik. Lord Krishna glorifies anyone who lights a lamp for somebody else to offer. So Sri Sanatana Goswami doesn't say every single day. He just says if you offer one single lamp with pure devotion, not just offer it, run through the ritual, but if you sincerely offer at least one lamp during Kartik, that's enough to catch Krishna's attention. So luckily, we have an entire month's worth, from full moon to full moon, to attempt to get at least one pure offering. Now, there is a method to how we offer the lamps. Specifically, these will be ghee wick lamps. And ideally, it's either on a small stick, or it is a ghee wick that is in a clay pot. And there is a method to it. So normally we'll offer it to a Ratha Damodar Lili, and we actually do have little Damodar that is on the altar. So later, when we do Damodar Astakam, we will have the ghee lamps out. When you offer it, you want to make sure you first do 4 clockwise rotations at their feet. Then you'll go 2 times around the navel. Then you'll go 3 times around the face. And then 7 times around the body. And you're doing all of these. What direction? Clockwise. Very good. And then you place it inside the tray in front. So that's what we want to try to, you're going to try to strive for. Is throughout this month, whenever you are offering that lamp, try to do it with just full mentality, just focusing on Krishna. Not on anything else, not on what time it is, not on what time dinner is work. It has to be done. Just fully focus on that offering, and then Krishna will be pleased just by one humble offering of that lamp. Of course, there are other things that we can do during Kartik as well. So, another in the next verse that is instructed.
Those sentence you read said somebody else.
You know the sentence, somebody else. What is
Yes, so Lord Krishna glorifies anyone who lights a lamp for somebody else to offer. So think about service, providing an opportunity, lighting it, passing it to someone else to offer, engaging somebody else. So if you have, like, let's say family members, of course, if you have a home program, after you do your offering, if you have small children, light their lamp, offer to them, assisting other people in their service to Krishna. Now, in the next verse of Hari Bhakti Virala 1645, Sri Sanatana Goswami says, other vows bring the results of a lifetime of pious deeds. The vow of Karthik brings the result of 100 lifetimes of pious deeds. And these vows are not meant to be public. So these, during the month of Karthik, in addition to the general services of worshipping Sri Tulsi, of offering a lamp, of hearing about Damodar Lila, reciting Damodar Ashtakam, it's often customary for devotees to take on an additional vow to their regular bhakti. So if you want to think of a more common example that we see in the West during the month of Lent for a lot of Christians and specifically Catholics, they will take on a vow of doing something, or more of actually avoiding something, a vice. So this is sort of similar to that concept, where you're, instead of avoiding something, you're actually adding an additional service of devotion to your daily practice. So this could be extra rounds of japa, this could be extra reading, or reading specific texts from the Vedas. And then, of course, offering extra services to Tulsi. These are all different things that you can do, but generally these are things that you keep to yourself. So similarly, like, you don't go around proclaiming, I am X person's disciple, he is my guru. Or saying, I am chanted this many rounds today, but because it's Karthik, I am chanting more. This is something that you internally cultivate. So that's something after class you can start to think about, how can I focus on what I want to give to Lord Damodar during this holy month. Now, with all that being said, we've set the foundation of what is normally expected of us during Karthik. We want to hear about Damodar Lila. We want to, either through reading it in the Sanskrit text, through the Vedas of Srimad Bhagavatam or Krishna book. We also want to sing the glories of Sri Damodar through Damodar Ashtakam. We want to also make sure we're at least striving to offer a ghee lamp once every day to the Lord, and at least one time during this month, if we can give our full attention to offer it with pure devotion, that will have an unlimited amount of benefit. And then, of course, whatever you are capable of doing, try to take an extra vrat, an extra vow, that you can add on to your normal practice of bhakti. But there are mistakes that we are inevitably going to commit. And that is to be expected. So now we're going to tackle it. How do we tackle this concept? Because ultimately, mistakes are going to happen. There is the phrase, I'm only human. So, I'm only human often has a negative context. I'm flawed. I can only do so much. And that applies also to our spiritual practice as well. We can only go so far. However, we can still tackle it with a certain mindset. And how can I acknowledge the mistakes that I make and improve upon them? And then, of course, there are also some mistakes which we can already know ahead of time. How can I just avoid those and just focus on the ones that I know I may commit, but how can I improve on those mistakes during this month? So, let's talk about some avoidable mistakes that we can do during Karthik. The ones that you should be able to do without difficulty to cut out, at least during this month. First off, not doing anything. I think this is the easiest mistake to avoid. Simply by doing something for Krishna during the month of Karthik. Even if, remember, as Sri Sanatana Goswami said, even if it's just offering one lamp, that is still something during the entire month. So doing nothing is an easily avoidable mistake. Another one is to avoid showboating. So remember how I said when during Karthik, we make a vow. We take on different vows. Those vows are personal. You might share them in confidence with people. If you need coaching, guiding, or you're struggling with something, you can share in confidence what some of my vows are. But this is not something that you're going to go around like, yes, normally I'm an initiated disciple. I normally chant 16 rounds every day, but because it's Karthik, I'm going to chant 64 rounds every day. And I already finished my 64 rounds, so I'm going to chant even more. I've already read the entire Sri Bhagavad Gita throughout this entire Karthik month. I'm going to do it again. This is something you want to avoid, because ultimately that is not feeding your bhakti creep or your bhakti lata beach. It is feeding your false ego, puffing you up, and it's actually an offense to utilize spiritual activities to amplify one's own personal position. You should be taking on these vows to humble yourself, to take something on as a challenge and try to meet it to the best of your ability. So you don't want to showboat. And then, of course, the other thing too is while you're doing all these things, you want to avoid doing everything by yourself. You want to avoid doing everything alone. You should not be a one-man army. That is impossible. Exactly. You want to do this through teamwork. Congregation is extremely important, especially during these auspicious months. Think about how, as we just mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sri Sanatana Goswami says that everything during this month is multiplied. All pious activities are multiplied hundreds of times. Now just imagine what that happens when you do hundreds of times together. It's not a linear growth. That is exponential amounts of benefit. So anything that you do congregationally will have an extreme benefit to your personal practice. So you are not alone during Karthik. Don't do anything is one thing you want to avoid. You want to avoid showboating what you're doing, and you want to avoid doing anything by yourself. You want to do things congregationally. You want to do things with humility. Now, I know that's a little somewhat negative, but I'd like to transition us into something a little more positive, and actually would like to share a little story. So this is actually from His Holiness Sachidananda Maharaj. Usually does these beautiful little Karthik tidbits. So this is one of his inspiration stories from last year's Karthik Mas. And you can actually look at these online. They're very well composed and very well written. So this is his story that he tells. Once, a king took his young son into the forest. He wanted him to take over the kingdom and thought to train his son in swordsmanship. The king said to his son, "See that lion? Approach it and challenge it to a fight. I will go in the other direction and hunt some bears. We will meet here before sunset." But when the king returned, his son was nowhere to be found. Shocked and anxious, the king informed his ministers, "He is the future king, the Yuvaraj. We need to find him. Tomorrow, go into the forest and declare that whoever finds my son, dead or alive, will receive a village and the rights to collect the taxes and a large property. They will not have to care for the rest of their lives. Everything they will need will be taken care of. Their livelihood will be my gift." So, one of the people that was living in the forest was a dreaded and feared dacoit, and he had killed many people. Hearing the king's declaration, and knowing that the forest, he knew the forest like the back of his hand, he went out and he started to look for the young prince. And he found the young prince in a cave. And the boy had survived on berries and waters. And overjoyed, the prince said, "I'm so happy. Can you bring me back to my father?" And the dacoit replied, "Let's see. Tell me, what's better for me? To kill you and take your golden ornaments, or to return you to your father? He might recognize me, or the ministers might know who I am, as I'm the most feared dacoit in this area." And the prince pleaded, "Please, don't kill me. I promise you, my father loves me. And out of his love for me, he will love you too. And he will pardon you." The dacoit was convinced, and he decided to take him back to his father. When they entered the kingdom, everyone rejoiced at seeing the prince alive, but they instantly trembled in fear at the sight of the dacoit. So they went to the king, who cried tears of ecstasy, and he embraced his son. "You're back. Who found you? Who brought you home?" The prince replied, "This man is my savior." But before the king could speak to his ministers, and they leaned over and they whispered to his ear, "This is the most feared dacoit in the land. Earlier you said that anyone who brings him in will be given a rich reward, and that you want to see, but this is the dacoit, and you want to see him executed." So the king paused, and then he said, "I forgive this man. He saved my son, and he brought him back to me, and I am ready to forgive all his offenses." The king's order was followed, and the dacoit was richly rewarded. So, if we break down this story, the dacoit. This is the most feared person in this forest. You've killed many people. You commit many offenses. He had committed a lot of mistakes. But ultimately, when the son pleaded to the father, no, like this man saved me. He brought me here back to you. He reunited me with you. Spare him. Give him your benediction just like you promised. The king listened to that out of affection for his son. He said, you're right. Because I love you, I will care for this person. This is an allegory. This is a metaphor for what happens during Karthik. Despite all the mistakes that we may commit, maybe our mind is not fully under control. Or sometimes maybe our tongue is just drooling a little too much when we're looking at prasadam. Or any other mistakes we commit. If we have some sincerity in the service that we do successfully achieve during Karthik, Srimati Radharani pays attention. And she will tell Krishna, look, I know they're flawed. I know they have a past where they've made many mistakes. But look, they are doing this sincere service. Please be merciful on them, at least during this month. And of course, Radharani always has the ear of Krishna. And more importantly, because she is actually the presiding deity of Karthik, not Damodar. So a lot of people only think, yes, Karthik Mas, this is when we pray to Lord Damodar. Yes and no. It is impossible to get Krishna on your own. You have to approach Srimati Radharani. She is the only one that has Krishna's ear. So if you please Radharani, Krishna will then take notice of you and then give you mercy. But of course, we are in Kali Yuga. So how do we approach Radharani in Kali Yuga?
Lord Nityananda.
Yes. So we approach Lord Nityananda Prabhu first because he is Adi Guru. When we approach Lord Nityananda Prabhu will take us to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course, as we can understand from Shastra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna in the same being. It is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani, and they will take us to Radha Krishna. We never approach Krishna directly. That is a fool's mentality. You approach Shrinitai Gauranath Raj, they will bring you to Radha Krishna. And with that sincerity, that's how you can potentially get the mercy of Krishna. Now, with that, we understand our mistakes. We know what we have to do. How do we cultivate this mentality? Actually, one of the verses in Damodarastakam prayers that we'll recite later encompasses this, what our mentality should be perfectly. This is actually verse number 4. Varam deva moksham na moksham vadinga. Nacham vadinaham parashadapiha. Idam deva purnata gopalabalam sadhanamanasya virastam kiranyaya. So, O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray for the boon of impersonal liberation, nor the highest liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon which may be attained through the 9 processes of bhakti. O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Balagopal in Vrindavan may ever be manifest in my heart. For what is the use to me for any other boon besides this? Think about that for a second. We do not even want moksha. We do not want liberation. Because moksha is useless unless you have Krishna in your heart. A good way I like to think about this is if you think about if you want to purchase a plane ticket. When you get on a plane, you're going to travel, yes?
Yes.
You want to go to a destination. Let's say you want to go to Vrindavan, you want to go to Mayapur, you want to go to Puri. Is your mind focused on the flight? Or is your mind the destination? The destination, yeah. The flight, cool. It could be nice, maybe, if you're flying like Qatar Airways or Emirates, maybe you have a nice airline, but ultimately your focus is where the destination is. Same thing for liberation. Moksha will come if you're performing your devotional service with sincerity and purity. That's a given. It's kind of like when you think about if you sign up for, let's say you're buying a house, and that house happens to have a pool. Cool, okay, the house has a pool. But I was focused on the house. The pool is a nice benefit. Same thing with moksha. That's our mentality that we should have. I don't want liberation. I just want you, Krishna. I don't care where I am. And that's what the mentality of a devotee, a Vaishnava, should be. I could be in the hellish planets. I could be in Orlando. I could be in the heavenly planets. I could be in Brahmaloka. I could be in Vaikuntha Loka, in the heavenly planets or in the spiritual planets. It does not matter where I am, in the material sky or the spiritual sky. I just want you. And ultimately, that's what happens when when you reach a pure state of devotion. Because just by pure devotion, you're automatically in the spiritual world. Think about Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada always had Krishna on his mind, constantly chanting the holy name, constantly preaching Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Was he in the material world? Yes or no? Yes or no? Which one?
Yes.
Wherever Srila Prabhupada walks is the spiritual world. Wherever the deity of Krishna's name is, wherever Krishna is, that is the spiritual world. So wherever Srila Prabhupada is going, that's the spiritual world. Because he's a pure devotee. Because Krishna is in his heart. And wherever Krishna is, that is spiritual. So it's the same thing. We are just looking to serve Krishna, no matter the circumstances. We don't need liberation. We just need Krishna and his pure service. So what we should have as the mentality in our heart is simply, I want to be yours. I am yours. You are mine, no matter the circumstances. That's what we want to try to manifest in our heart. And then, of course, we can go back to the beginning when we just read earlier when we read the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, talking about Mother Yasoda's mentality. When she was churning that butter, what was she doing?
She was thinking of Krishna.
She was thinking of Krishna. She was reciting poetry, basically summarizing Krishna's pastimes as she was engaged in that service. Love. How did Mother Yasoda bind Krishna? With rope or with love? With love. Because remember, if she tried just with rope, it's 2 fingers too short every time. The last 2 fingers was that love, that pure love. That is how you bind Krishna, pure love. Think about it. In previous yugas, mystic yogis would commit so many years of just severe austerities, fire sacrifices, all to try to capture Krishna. And here Mother Yasoda is simply just chasing after him with a whipping stick in her hand, and out of her pure love for Krishna, she's actually able to capture the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He lets himself be captured by his devotees because of that pure love. Now for us, we are not Mother Yashoda. We can't simply grab Krishna and bring him in. We need a little bit of help. You remember, we have to first do it as a congregation. We have to do it together. We have to do it sincerely. And then ultimately, we need, for us to get that last 2 inches of rope, for us, we need Srimati Radharani to tell Krishna, stop running away, slow down, let them capture you, at least for this month. So that's what we want to strive to achieve during this month. We want to make sure we are reciting the Murarastikam daily. We are reading about Damodar Lila. We are lighting a ghee lamp every day. And at least one of the days during Karthik, from full moon to full moon, at least one of those offerings, we try to get as humble and sincere as we possibly can to get that unlimited benefit. But ultimately, we just want to do it out of pure love and how can I serve Krishna. And then in addition to that, whatever you can manage to do something extra for Krishna. And that can, remember, take many different forms. So for the last 30, 40 minutes or so, if anyone has any questions about the Damodar Lila, or how to think about how to tackle different vows, different vrats, or anything that, any realizations that people have from previous Kartik months or what they're looking forward to during this month, we'll open the floor. I think we should have 3 mics floating around.
2 months.
Oh yeah, 3.
Before, yeah. I'll leave the question to somebody else. I wanted to sing a song. But this song came from a class and reminded me quickly that Damodar Ashtakam is something that we do, but after Damodar Ashtakam finished, 10-20 minutes, what you do the rest of the day, what he said in his class is to sing songs that Mother Yashoda was singing. The activities that she was poeticizing is the one, right? So I'm singing on a song in a different melody. Let's see if we can guess on which part of this, which song it is, right? Putana Ghatana Ketab Sadhana Jaya Dasharathi Rama. Okay, maybe that's right. So some of you know it. Different melody, but I sing a different way. But Vivabari Shastra has all many of those pastimes of that Krishna has displayed, and that's something we can also learn and sing, memorize it, or just look at the song and sing. Other time than Damodar. So this will help us remind what Mother Yashoda was doing. So that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah. No, it's good. So that's actually luckily there. If you want to try to follow, obviously not imitate, but follow in the footsteps of that mentality that Mother Yashoda had. Something that we do, that I do really appreciate that we do here, specifically at ISKCON Orlando. We don't always see it at every other temple, but we every week recite a different Vaishnava bhajan. This is something that Srila Prabhupada's Guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, stressed, learning all the different Vaishnava bhajans, which there are countless different bhajans. Recently we had Srila Narottam Das Thakur's Disappearance Day, but of course he has composed many, I believe it was 32 Vaishnava bhajans he composed, so if you go to the bhajan. But multiple, and then of course Bhaktivinoda Thakur composed many different, so the list goes on and on and on of how many different Vaishnava bhajans there are. And that's a really good way to dive into how to understand Krishna. Because one, like I mentioned, they are given a very catchy tune. Just like how commercials, they put a catchy jingle to get your mind fixed on their product. That's how you get fixed on Krishna. You sing Vaishnava bhajans, but then you also read and understand the meaning behind those bhajans. Some of those bhajans are glorifying the Lord or different pastimes of the Lord. But some of them are not necessarily glorifying the Lord, but they're how to help you develop that mentality. How can I get to the mentality where I can even appreciate some of these bhajans, for example, like Bhajaru Hore Mana. You're chastising your mind to the point that maybe I can understand Krishna. So that's one thing that if you really want to dive into that mentality, how can I constantly sing about Krishna? Come to the Sunday program, because we will always recite a different Vaishnava bhajan. Of course, during Karthik, we will sing Damodarastikam, as is during the month. However, throughout the rest of the year, we will constantly sing different Vaishnava bhajans so that we can delve into the different pastimes of Krishna. So thank you, Prabhu. Any other questions? Realization just to share.
So you were talking about like Karthik Vrats and how it's like a good thing to like read extra, or I don't know what else you were saying. You're saying Damodarastikam. Now, chant extra. Now, some of these Karthik Vrats might be good to actually continue to do after Karthik. Like, maybe you weren't reading before, and then during Karthik you're like, oh, I'm going to read one verse a day. But reading is something that, maybe we should continue after Karthik. How do you, because like during Damodar month, you have that, motivation, like during this 1 month, I can commit to chanting one round. But after that month finishes, how do we get that motivation to maybe continue to do some of these things?
Yeah, so this was actually, I've seen this with some of my friends that have made brats and everything, but if you think about, let's take it for a mundane example, for instance, New Year's resolutions. It happens, I'm gonna go to the gym more, I'm gonna lose 10 pounds, I'm gonna learn a new instrument, I'm gonna do all these things. It'll last for a month, maybe. Realistically, it'll last for 2 weeks, and then the energy will die off. And that's normally, if you actually see like New Year's resolutions, they normally are, the bar is set too high. And you can maintain that momentum for a little bit before it just instantly tapers off. So if you want to, if let's say you take one of your Kartik vows and you want to maintain that after the month is over, first frame, look at what is feasible for me. So that's also the mentality, what am I doing during Kartik? So for example, let's say maybe I'm not an initiated devotee yet, but during Kartik, oh yeah, let's get 16 rounds done, cool. And then let's keep that momentum going after Kartik. Let's chant those 16 rounds. But maybe you're not accustomed to it yet, and then you start to fall off. Set some reasonable goals for yourself. So let's say if you've never chanted 16 rounds before, if you're daily chanting before Kartik, let's say 4 rounds, maybe during Kartik you bump it up to 8, dial it back a little bit, but still increase it. So okay, let's do 5 rounds daily. And then next Karthik, if that was fine, yeah, that's easy. Let's bump it back to 8. Do like 8 rounds again. And then after the month is over, let's do 6 rounds. And then after the month's over, 8, 7, 8, 8, and then you can incrementally increase over time. That's one way that you can easily gain some momentum on a long period. That's another thing to factor in. If you want something to stick as a habit, do something incrementally that's manageable over time. So if you want to increase your rounds, steadily increase that. Maybe even if it's only 1 round per year, but if you know I can definitively give my attention to 1 extra round outside of Karthik, maybe I can do that. If it's reading, and a very common one's like, well, we at least try to do is like do 10 minutes a day during Karthik. Maybe it's 20 minutes a day. Then after Karthik, if I want to read more, let's dial it back a little bit, because I know the spiritual energy is, maybe it's, I'm not as immersed, but let's still try to keep it a little bit. Let's dial it down to 15 minutes a day. Or different things like that. Minor things, tweak, be realistic, know your limits, but also understand, am I doing this because I want to do it? Or am I doing this more for show? That's another thing you have to factor in as well. It's like, okay, I did such amazing vows, I'm gonna keep those vows, and look at me now. I'm just like such a sadhu. No, be realistic, incrementally increase if you want to maintain vows after Karthik. Is probably my best advice.
I think that's a very good response. But also you mentioned, he already mentioned earlier in this month. This month has so much of, extra super energy. So if someone is chanting, just say 16 rounds, and they make a vow of 20 rounds, you'll be surprised you will be able to do it. Because the energy that's flowing in this month provides you with all the necessary things that you need to set your mindset and achieve that goal, because you're doing this from your heart. As long as you're doing this from your heart, not to put on a Facebook post, 64 rounds, what you call that? Blast, what do you call it? That's it. So, is that you're talking about that, right? Yeah. But if you sincerely want to change 20 from 16, you'll be surprised. The energy that comes from this month of Radharani, oh my God, just imagine the pure, most highest devotee. You'll be surprised if you can do it. So, but when you come back after Karthik, go back to normal, it's fine. But this month, energy is there, let's do it.
Yeah. Another thing I'll add is giving yourself a safety net. Specifically, as you mentioned, doing things, remember, not doing things on your own. Shri Shri Nidaya, oh, Ranatara, Nidaya. So not doing things on your own, finding yourself a safety net. So let's say you want to read more. Don't read on your own. Find a group. Maybe you're on Karthik, you can read on your own, you're reading extra, but afterwards, let's say, okay, I want to read more, let's give myself a target, but let me read with a friend. Let me read, instead of just doing 10 minutes on my own, why don't I read 15 minutes every day with a friend for Krishna? Or even, maybe it's not even a day, at least try, let's do 20 minutes a week. Me and my friends will read Krishna book. Or if you're chanting your rounds and you want to increase more, just like set a reminder, not for yourself, for a friend. If you have a friend who also wants to increase their rounds, set a reminder, a daily reminder on your phone. Text so and so, how are your rounds going? As a little reminder, not saying did you finish your rounds, how are your rounds going? And then same thing, if it's a reciprocal plan, like cool, I'll check in on you, you check in on me. They're going to be the ones that will help remind, like, how are your rounds going? Like, oh, okay. That can have that benefit as well. Things are always done better as a congregation. So that's something that you can also rely. If you want to help, give yourself some accountability, give yourself a safety net of a friend who can help you with increasing. Because that will always be better if you feel like you have someone who's supporting you in your devotional practice.
Yeah, Prabhu. So again, I wanted to add on the realization which Dwarkan Prabhu was saying. So again, what I see, right, when I come to the temple, I see it's all surrounded by the positive energy. And so I feel like, okay, I'm, excited. I do, my best, whatever I can do in terms of bhakti. The same way in Karthik month, entire universe is there. It's, spreading the positive energy all over. And, and with the, when you come in contact of that positive energy, your bhakti, it gets better and better, and you do the chanting more and more, whatever, whether it's chanting, reading. So that is one my realization. Other thing is again for devotee, every day is a Karthik day. So from that perspective, but again one vow that we should take sorry, is how we can involve others, right? Like non-devotee, how I can bring them to the home and ask them to light the lamp at least one day. So slowly sorry. So slowly we can get that bhakti that will evolve, and maybe in this pious month if they do just one time, like Radharani or Krishna can see, and so they can get the bhakti as well as for inviting others, I can also get the pious activity.
Yes.
I think that's one thing we can try.
It is, and of course that's obviously we go back to Hari Bhakti Vilas, what Sri Shanatana Goswami says, like not only offering a lamp, but if you help someone else offer a lamp, or any service that you perform that is giving Krishna consciousness to somebody else, that is, the benefit is unlimited, because you're reawakening someone else's connection with Krishna. That could be inviting people to your home and lighting a lamp, even if they don't do it, okay. But people generally like to light candles. It's the fall time of year. People are naturally in that, yes, I love candles. Let me light this. So just say, yeah, this is a ghee candle. It's a ghee wick. It's a candle. It's fall themed. But they don't have to necessarily know the full meaning, the full pastime behind why they're lighting a lamp. But it can also be other ways how you can give Krishna, not just through lighting a lamp. If you think more practically, if you're going out to the street, okay, maybe I can't give some random stranger on the street a ghee lamp. Like, here, look at this picture. 4 times, 2, 3, 1, 7, do this clockwise, you get the benefit. That might probably not work on the streets, but what does work on the street is chanting the holy names outside, or giving somebody a book. All of these different things are ways that you can give Krishna in public that people can understand. So yes, whatever you can do to share Krishna with others, maybe that's even making some very nice prasada that you offer to Damodar. And then if you bring it to your work, I made these cookies, have one. Prasadam is always the easiest way, and it forever will always be the easiest way to give people Krishna's mercy. Yes.
So I was listening to a class by Amarendra Prabhu, and he was telling a story of these devotees and what they would do. They had a van or some sort, and in the back of the van they put a huge picture of Yashoda and Damodar, and they would drive around to different stores. They would just open the trunk of their van, and they would, it'd be like a Patel Brothers or something like that, and they just open and just, after people were exiting the store, they'd become like, here, we're doing this for Diwali, light a candle. And like even these days, in America, the president or the government or whatever, they say, Happy Diwali, it's become sort of normalized. So, people are like, oh, Diwali, yes, that's very auspicious, so they'd offer a ghee lamp, and they might not necessarily know, the true benefit, but it's like they were just going around, and I thought that was an interesting anecdote to share.
Next week. Open your van.
We just need to modify the van, open it, picture run number in the back, open it up, yep, just offer. But yeah, no, we do have the good benefit that, at least for Western culture, candles seem to be a thing in fall, so it's actually it's easier to get random strangers like, oh yeah, I'll light a candle.
Yeah, candles.
So, yes.
One Harinam at Blanchard Park, he was there for that.
I remember the movie. Yeah.
I think Gopal Bhumi Sham had organized that, and they actually had Damodar picture, and everybody passing by.
Okay, it was a
That-
real,
yes, real fire lamp.
nobody
No,
can do it. Let's
right
do it.
here, down
Let's
on
just
Blanchard Park,
do it
they're
again
very,
then.
they're very reasonable here. They're not like
Yeah.
the Corolla here.
Let's do it.
Yeah?
No complaint there, you're safe there.
Yeah, it's not like big flame, it's just a little lamp and it outs within a minute. Yeah, they never told us anything about that. Yes, so we did that one day.
Let's do it. Of course.
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, very nice class. A lot of points you covered how we should take this month for spiritual growth and to develop more devotional activities. So there is another point to this, like when you were mentioning from Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatan Goswami tells, even if you do once, that's more than enough. So there is like negative side of it, especially in India I have seen. People like, okay, I'll do one time and let's do all the other materialistic activities or anything nonsense, so I'm covered. So, so and same way like we have the saying like we go to Ganges, take bath and we will cleanse all our sins. But is that realistic? Is that work?
No.
Does that work?
So the caveat, I should say, to that, if it's done once, is you are striving to do it at least once perfectly. That's realistically not going to happen. And in most people's cases, there is going to be some material tinge to it. Maybe it's even if it's subconscious and it's not conscious, like, yes, I know if I do this, all my sins are going to be forgiven. Perfect. That mentality does not cultivate bhakti. So the goal, if you want to think of it as, let's say it's the profession, like let's say you are a young child, but ultimately you're growing up, I want to be a famous artist. The parents are going to look at every single piece of artwork that that child makes. When they're a toddler, they're going to scribble with crayon and they say, look at the bird, and you just see a bunch of red and blue all over. The parents are going to look at that and say, look at the bird, and they're going to put it on the fridge. They're not going to put every single picture on the fridge, but they're going to monitor that kid's progress as they grow. In the school, they're going to start to learn shapes, give it structure. It's not quite a bird yet, but it's getting there, and the parents are going to keep on encouraging, yes, keep doing it, keep trying, and then ultimately, after that child has graduated art school, they have functionally painted a bird that looks like a picture. It's like, wow, they're going to hang that on the wall, but ultimately you're going to still have that little scribble of crayon on at the same time. It's the endeavor that you're doing as well. You can't do that one time perfectly if you're not trying to strive all the other times you're offering as well. So the mentality is, yes, if it's done once, you receive all the benefits. You get moksha is given to you, you get tatastu, you're given liberation, you're given that pure love for Krishna. But you don't get that unless you try for it. So dumb luck does not work in devotional service. You have to endeavor for it. Same thing if you want to, let's say, get a good job. You can't just say, yep, I've graduated, I have my degree, here it is, I'm going to put my application in, I'm going to get that job because I did that one thing. That's not going to work. The hiring manager is like, okay, you have the degree, good, you did the application, you passed that, where's your community service? Where's your background experience? How can I know you're qualified for this position? That's the same thing. You won't get that one result unless you endeavor, unless you're proving that I want this. So that's the whole thing, that mentality behind it. Even if it's a one-time thing, and you get that one instance, all the other times there still has to be that desire and that determination. It's not just a one-off. And ultimately, we can even understand it's an offense to commit sinful activities on the strength of devotional service and activities.
Yes, so in a sense, the acharyas, they say these sayings mainly to inspire people so that at least they can do once and slowly, with Krishna's mercy, they can maybe come to that level and that one time that perfect.
Exactly. You got to keep trying, not just a one-off.
So to add the questions right now which Marisa Mataji was asking and Smith Prabhu said. So again, my take is, if you are doing something sincerely for the 30 days, isn't it, it should become your practice. Why we would, leave it after Karthik month? If I am, let's say, if I take a vow, just a random example, instead of 8, if I am doing 10 rounds of chanting, right? If I do for 30 days, on 31st day, it should become my practice. I should be going for 10 rounds. That 8 round is gone.
Yeah.
It should become a practice.
Ideally, it should, in an ideal scenario. But you also have to be practical and look at your situation. Think about, if you do take any additional vows during the month, is that feasible for me to continue? So that depends on multiple factors. One is, how's your time management skills? Do you have the life to accommodate such things? So for example, I am going to read multiple chapters each day of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to chant extra rounds every day. Awesome! Are you a brahmachari? Are you in student life? No. That might be a little more difficult if you're in family life. So you have to look at how can I serve Krishna in the best of my capacity? It's not necessarily the quantity, it's the quality. So it's not, I'm going to do extra rounds and I'm going to maintain that. If you can, good. Because then your body's naturally just getting more attached to this devotional activity. But you have to be practical and think about your scenarios and how can I not necessarily increase everything, but how can I simply spiritualize everything else that I'm doing? Maybe just like Mother Yashoda, while I am typing away, doing my spreadsheets, I am singing a bhajan about Krishna. I'm thinking about Krishna, I'm creating poetry. Or if I'm doing something as simple as mowing the lawn, just think, Krishna would love to play in this lawn. That's another way that you can think. It's not always about what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, what is your mentality. Yes, Mata.
So you said 432. I did not get that number, Prabhuji. That is one question. And there's so many people in this temple. Is it practical? Can we all do that, or that is for only at home?
So the 432 is when we're offering the lamps to Damodar. There is a method and a numbers that you should be doing. So you do 4 times to the feet, then you're going to do twice to the navel, and then 3 times around the face, and then 7 times around the body clockwise. So that's the cadence. So 4, 2, 3, 7. And then you place it. So
what is the significance of that?
yeah, with the same length, and then you're not just going to be arbitrarily like, yep, thank you for the benefit. Very good. You're worshiping each part of the Lord's body. So that, of course, we always start with the feet, because as Vaishnavas, when we bow down, we go to the Lord's feet to maintain that humble mentality. Then you go up to the navel. Of course, this is the entire abode of the universe. This is also, the whole month is revolving around Krishna's belly. Not my belly, Krishna's belly. And then, of course, you move up to the face, where, of course, Mother Yashoda is beautifully talking about, describing it. And then, of course, in Damodarastakam, you hear about how his lips are reddish like the bimba fruit, the curly locks of black hair, and then around the entire body. But you're focusing on different aspects of the Lord as you go around.
4237, I got that. And I was asking, is it possible for everyone in the temple to do that?
Yes, everyone should do that.
Should do that? We can do it? Okay.
I sure hope everyone can do that part, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What is the significance of 4237, bro?
Yeah, it's easy. Add the numbers.
Srila Prabhupada instructions.
No, add the numbers. Huh? Loudly? 16. What's the big bag? How many rounds? Alright, so 16 rounds. This is it. Nothing else. That's the significance. We don't need to get to 16 rounds minimum every day. As I think Karthik. In Karthik you do more, but
So if you look closely, when you go to different temples and they're doing arati to the deities, if you look at the pujari, you're going to see the same pattern. If you look closely, that's the standard. You're supposed to do arati. Feet, belly,
I have seen that,
face,
noticed
yeah.
that, but I did not know.
And if you count, you can see like it would be small circles, then they would do big circles.
And then hopefully everyone will be at least able to do that. And of course, as Dr. 16, Srila Prabhupada set that standard for us, at least for initiated disciples within ISKCON. And then we had the benefit of using Karthik as a stepping stone to get to that point if we haven't already done so. And luckily, this is a reoccurring thing every year. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're still struggling to get to 16, incrementally increase. Think about like long-term planning. Okay, I'm at 8 this year. I'm going to use Karthik this year to get me eventually by next year to 10, to 12, to 14, to 16. So planning out long-term vision. So you take advantage of Karthik to have give you a little bit of a spiritual surcharge. But of course, we don't have to wait all the way until the next Karthik, because every single day is a festival. And as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, because we have so many different festivals think of those as little just charging points where we can charge our spiritual battery a little bit more to get us to the next Karthik so we can improve our devotional practice. But we had a mic? Someone? Yes, ma'am.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for a wonderful class, and happy Karthik Mass to everyone. The diya we offer at home, not here. I mean, here we're just offering Lord Damodar, but every time to increase our bhakti, we can just take that diya to the tulsi leaf, tulsi plant, and then offer the same diya also there. So just a little addition to, in the sense, I'd heard from one of the Maharajas in Vrindavan that the diya we offer to Lord Damodar, and then you can offer to Tulsi Devi also.
And that's one of the things during Karthik that
And separately also.
Yeah, one of the things I did mention, of course, during Karthik, worshipping Tulsi is a very important thing that we can focus on. And if you want to think about it in terms of, if I'm trying to also improve my vrats, in terms of my japa, chanting your japa around Tulsi during Karthik will really help you focus. So whether that's sitting by Tulsi, especially if you come here to the temple, we fortunately have Tulsi Maharani right outside with 2 benches. And luckily we have had a little bit of a colder front come in, so Florida is not so sweaty. And generally anywhere where you're going for Karthik, at least in North America or anywhere else, it's fall. Fall is cooler weather, so it's a little more bearable outside. Insects aren't always flying out and biting, so it's actually a really good time to be outside, sitting next to Tulsi, chanting your japa, really focusing on your inner cultivation. So use Tulsi Maharani and her devotion for Krishna to your advantage to increase your own love and devotion.
Yeah, maybe Govardhan Puja will be outside, the note will be given game of offering outside, then you can also offer those videos right there.
Yes.
It's good. Thank you.
Any other donations?
So in your class you mentioned that even Vaishnava's curse is a good thing, that we directly see Krishna and get
Yes.
right.
And if you even think, so if you get a curse from a Vaishnava, that can be a good thing depending on what your concept of good is. It may not be materially good, but it's a good thing. Same thing when you ask Krishna for blessings. You have to realize what you're asking for. We were recently reading in the 2nd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Sukadeva Goswami is explaining the breakdown of what people will worship this demigod to get this benefit. They'll worship this demigod to get this benefit. If they worship the ancestors, they will get this benefit. And if they worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of course, they will attain to the supreme spiritual kingdom. At any point in one worshiping Krishna, are you getting material opulence? You might get material opulence, but at the same time, if Krishna truly favors you, he's going to take everything away from you specifically. But he might reward the collective we. So if you think about Srila Prabhupada, 40 rupees is not a lot. But collectively, as ISKCON, as a worldwide movement, Srila Prabhupada is one of the richest men on the planet. Because he's not utilizing that wealth for personal gain, he's utilizing that wealth for Krishna's service. So that's the same thing when we are praying to Krishna. Of course, the ideal and what should be our mentality is not, Krishna, please, give me money. Give me all this. It's give me service so that I can serve you. And if Krishna sees that intention, like, okay, here's $20 million. Go buy that property, build a temple. That's how you will get rewarded with at least the material riches, if it's used properly in Krishna's service. Otherwise, if you're coming from, let's say, if you're a more affluent background, you might notice that all those zeros just become zero. But if it's used in Krishna's service, it has an unlimited benefit. I'll give an example of Amrish Prabhu. He is, of course, a descendant of Henry Ford. There are a lot of zeros in that bank account. A lot of zeros that I can only dream about. But where are all those zeros? They're going to the TOVP. They're going to fulfill one of Srila Prabhupada's visions of making Mayapur the spiritual capital of the world. And now you can really see how all that is coming to fruition and how big the mandir is. It makes the Vatican look tiny. But that's because utilizing all that wealth, he doesn't need it. Krishna needs it because ultimately it is Krishna. It's a foolish mentality to think that anything material is ours. We're simply borrowing it. So the same thing, when a curse is given from, like if a blessing is given from Krishna, often that's going to be all of what we think is ours is going to be taken away from us, because all we truly have, the only thing that we can claim that we can have as our own, is our love and determination to serve Krishna. That we can definitively claim is ours. I want to be and I am your servant. That you cannot take away from me, that you are going to take and you're going to like it. And of course, that is what Krishna wants. He wants us and that relationship. And he will do what he needs to reestablish that, but we have to be receptive to it. And then the same thing, a devotee, so in the case of Narada Muni, seeing the two sons of Kubera, he was looking at their condition, and it's like, okay, they're splashing around doing X, Y, Z, the water with these women. They need a reality check. So I'm going to give them a reality check. But I'm going to give them the best possible reality check. You're going to be trees, you're going to be two Arjuna trees, but ultimately that curse ended up being a blessing, because as soon as those two trees fell, what's the first thing that the twins got to see, the twin brothers saw? They see Krishna, they see Sri Damodar. And that instantly is everything. That's everything you could ever want. So pray for a curse from a devotee, even if Maharaj said that Hari is going to be naughty. I promise that will eventually become a blessing. With patience.
Another question.
Yes.
Like we do the this Govardhan Leela, right? Govardhan Leela happened for 7 days. So Krishna lifted in pinky finger, right? But we celebrate only 1 day. So we don't celebrate 7 days. But I know there are devotees who go to Vrindavan and they take parikrama in those 7 days where of the Govardhan, because it's very, very auspicious, because that is a time when, but I just want to know why we don't celebrate for 7 days and only 1 day.
Well, formally, at least in this instance, is because we work during the week. No one's stopping any of us from celebrating the full 7 days. Same thing, the Damodar Leela only happened on 1 day. We are singing Damodar Astakam for the entire month. So the same thing, nothing should theoretically stop you from glorifying the Lord. Take advantage of it. If you're, no, I'm not going to stop you. And if anything, of course, it's actually various, especially if you're going to the Dham and you're doing Govardhan Parikrama for the full 7 days, the benefit, you can't even count, it'd be unlimited. So whenever there's any pastime, and then not to mention, you can even just people go to Parikram around Govardhan outside of Karthik. So you don't necessarily have to wait for those opportunities. Just like if you think about if you think in the marketing world, there are sales that are happening all the time. There are sales that happen during Christmas. There are sales that happen during New Year, sales that happen during Christmas. You can still buy that couch and you can still buy that TV during any time of the year. Nothing's stopping you. It just sometimes it's a little more easier to attain during certain specific times. But not saying with endeavor and devotion, you can still worship all of these different aspects of Krishna throughout the year. So you just take advantage of it.
Thank you.
A couple more minutes. This one.
So you were also mentioning in the class about this month being month for worshipping Radharani. And I heard in one of the class that next month, Margasira Mas, is for Krishna. Do you
No, off the top of my head, right, Prabhu, do you have?
Yeah. Of the months I am. Say, the who knows? Krishna says, of the months I am. Which month? No, not Karthik. November, December, the month that comes after Karthik. That's Margashirsha. Right now. So of the months I am Margashirsha. Right? That's what he says. But Karthik is my favorite month because it's the month of Radharani.
Radha always comes before Krishna.
That comes first, Krishna, and in the month after that is my month. What's the big deal? It's my month. What's the big deal? I, Krishna, love the month before my month. It's a Damodar month, month of Radharani, month of serving Radharani, because she has the highest potency of serving the Lord through the devotional services. That's what we all get to do the same way.
So do you do anything special in Magus? Like how we are doing Damodar for Karthik?
There are other wonderful gopis who take Vrat, Katyayani Vrat. Okay, Krishna is the husband.
Oh, that happened in Magus.
Yeah, that's happened in Margeshta. The specific month there too, but this month Radharani. Krishna said, I am Margeshta, but my favorite is Damodar because Radharani's presence is little strong for worshiping. But Karthik, I mean, say Margeshta also is Katyayani Vrat. Katyayani, another form of who? We discussed the other day. Durga Devi, very good. Very good.
So, I guess I'll close off before, since I know we only have about a minute or so. So, think about this one, since Karthik is starting. Think, reflect. It's a good time for reflection. Maybe at some point, well, if you're looking and you see that the line is very long, at first like, oh no, that's a long line. Maybe I'll just go sit on the bench by Tulsi Maharani and just reflect. Think about where you are in devotional practice, and think what is plausible, what is feasible for me to attain a little bit extra. So let's say if I'm chanting X amount of rounds, maybe I can do 1 extra, 2 extra. Or if I'm reading, maybe, or if you want to start reading, maybe there's like just a really good one like of Srila Prabhupada's books that you've wanted to read, but you just haven't had the motivation or just the reason to start it. Maybe use Karthik as that opportunity. Like maybe I want to go through this month and I want to tackle one of Srila Prabhupada's smaller books. That's actually something that's really feasible. Looking at one of the smaller books, you can easily do that in a month without rearranging your entire life. And if you want to read the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in Kartik Mas, that might be a little more difficult. But if I'm looking at the Sri Upanishad, or I'm looking at Chant and Be Happy, like, oh yeah, I can definitely read that in 1 month of Kartik. So think about what you want to do and internalize it. Remember, this is something that is between you and Krishna. So really think about how can I make this an offering in my devotional practice, and how can I maintain it? And ideally, how can I maintain this also after Kartik? And how can I improve on that for the following Kartik?
Yeah, so another Vallabha is coming in his parents' shirt because they don't want to